Hello, cross country. This is, I'm feeling, I can't even keep track anymore, but I think this is the fifth one of these. And hopefully you're finding them helpful. It's nice to be able to do, just to be able to talk to both boys and girls at once and to do that without a mask on or having to talk over anything in terms of noise. So it's good for me. I enjoy it. Hopefully you do too. I just want to touch on a couple of items for the week, and as always, I'll keep it under 15 minutes. We're at the halfway point in the season that we're currently being allowed. If and we haven't heard yet about sections, I would expect we'll hear in the next couple of weeks. If we do end up running a section race, that race would take place during MEA break. Right now, they're looking at the Thursday for reserving the golf course space that we race on. But we won't know that for a while, and so I've just listed those 2 weeks after conference as practices on our schedule because that is the longest that the season can go. But right now, the only guidance we currently have is that we have a 4 week season left, and where we're looking to go at this point is we'll compete one more time on the track inter squad. And I'll touch on what I've seen and noticed with that, particularly with this last Friday. And then the following week, we'll have our first meet where we actually compete against some other teams in the prelim. And what that will do, depending on how we finish, and they'll just add everyone's times together and do score the meet as if we all ran against each other at once. The top teams, the top three teams for boys and top three teams for girls, will then advance forward to the fast heat of the conference final. And even if a team's not to make the fast heat, you can still score out of the other heats. But I think from a competitive standpoint, it certainly would be helpful to be in the faster heat. And I see no reason why our boys and girls teams can't realistically compete for those three spots. But that race would take place 2 weeks afterwards. And then in between those two meets where we're actually competing against other schools in our conference, we'll go out to Garlow and we'll do one last Garlow relay. So those are our 4 weeks. We'll be on the track at St. Croix Bluffs at our meet. Then we'll be at Garlow, and then we'll be at St. Croix Bluffs one more time. And some point between now and that last race at St. Croix Bluffs, we will have more information about sections. But as of right now, I don't have that. What I do know is that I'm incredibly proud of how we've been handling this season. The strength and intensity you brought to the track on Friday was just awesome. I thought in that first race, I talked to a lot of you individually about, hey, it's a first race. It's getting to remember what it's like to push again. And I think, in part, I think a lot of people walked away from that thinking there was a little more in there to give. But again, that is just part of racing and part of remembering, or for many of you new on the learning how to race. And you all learned a ton in a week. When you came out at that mile, you came out hard but controlled. A couple people probably got out a little quicker than they would have liked to, but not by a lot. And no one really got out sluggish. I mean, we got out and competed hard, and we had a good weather day for it. But at the same time, I was just really impressed across the board with how we competed, boys and girls. Varsity heat, JV heat, open heat. I thought they were all run really, really well. And just a couple kind of highlights that popped out in my mind. Certainly our two individuals, Thomas on the boys' side, Nina on the girls' side, who each broke 5 minutes and 6 minutes respectively for the first time. That's more than just a one-day effort. That's something that takes a lot of time to build towards. Specifically in Thomas's case, he was not allowed to get to do that in the spring as part of track. And Nina wasn't on the track team, so she wouldn't have had that same opportunity. But it was just neat to see both athletes take advantage of that, and particularly Thomas as a senior who lost that opportunity in the spring to go out and seize it and really race well. That was just awesome. And then Daniel Truitt's race really jumped out at me in terms of a guy who pushed himself to the edge, broke 6 minutes by a few seconds, and really was exhausted. Our young 9th graders, 10th graders, what we talked about earlier in the week, I saw you all competed really, really hard against each other, and really fought like higher up level competitive athletes who've had a number of years of race experience. So just really, really well done, and know that while we're not competing directly against other teams yet, we're ready, and we're going to be ready when the time comes. In terms of competing this week, you get a choice. So you get to choose if you compete in the mile, in 2 mile. So if you want to run one of those 2 races again, or if you feel like, hey, I did my part at those 2 races and I'd like to try something else, we'll do a 5K. And so you can pick one of those 3 race distances. We will not do a 400, so we'll just do a mile or 2 mile or 5K. You'll pick one. And I'll ask you to give me that on Tuesday. So I'll ask you at practice on Tuesday. Mainly, I just want to give you Monday to run with your pace group and then maybe talk it over with them. Not that you have to do the same thing as they do, but particularly new runners, perhaps you can get some input from the more experienced runners, or if all of you are undecided as a group, you can kind of talk about together what it is you might want. I have no specific number that's the right number. You just pick which one you want to do, own it a little bit, and have fun with it. And then we'll put heats together and get times out, and we'll do that on Wednesday. I did put results up, and I'm just going to pop to the small window here. And these are the 2 mile results. So this is on the side of the website. So if you go over to the left-hand side and you scroll down, if we go to, there it is, the 1600 is just another tab in here. I just sorted it out and then did a sort by time. So you can see where you finished, what time you ran. And again, I really was impressed with how we raced. And the other one that jumped out at me was just the tight time spread, particularly with the girls varsity 7. To be that close together for all 7 of you, that's a really powerful feeling in terms of when you do get on a cross-country course, knowing you have your teammates that close to you and that you're pushing together. And I mean, I cannot think of all the times that I've seen groups come through and maybe you don't have I think of a year when we qualified for state, we didn't have anybody that individually qualified on the girls' side, but we came through in those spots 10 through 20. Just as a big brick of Sibley runners. And that's how you compete cross country. And even though at times it feels individual, it's very much a team sport. And that was a neat thing to see that spread on times. The other tab I wanted to highlight is the equipment tab. So I've kind of been slowly working my way through our website. And I haven't really talked much about equipment this fall just because there's been so much else going on. But there's an equipment tab. And I spent some time a year or 2 ago kind of putting this together just to say, hey, here are some resources, here are some things that runners get. Beyond having good running shoes, none of this is really a requirement. Even running shoes, I suppose, are a choice, but your feet are going to thank you for that one. And I think we're pretty good there with everybody. So that's the number 1. And then number 2, I said racing spikes. Talk about what spikes are. 3 is a running watch. I think many of you would really benefit from that investment. It's a small amount of money if you just kind of get a low-end watch, usually $20, maybe up to $30. At Target is a good place to get them, and they'll ship them to your house. You don't even have to go to the store. If you want to kind of up it, there's GPS watches, which many of your teammates have that you've seen, and those range more wildly in price in terms of what features you want to get. And then technical clothing. I think the more technical clothing you're wearing, the better. You're more comfortable you're going to be. And finally, racing flats I threw in there as number 6. Most of you probably aren't going to get those. It's similar to a spike. It's a racing shoe, but I think if you're an individual who's going to get them, you probably have knocked off the first 5 off this list first. And I think for most of us, we're at a point where we're a little higher up the list thinking about purchases. And I would say too, for you new runners, and I know it's an expense, and I'm not saying you need to buy them. But at some point, thinking about racing spikes, they will increase your speed. You don't have to get any faster. They'll just make you faster. And then you keep getting faster and you get that benefit from them as well. And I've got the few pairs that I do have, and we've checked a few out to people, but certainly I think, for many of us, that would be kind of the next thing that I would look to have you think about getting, just because they do speed you up. And we have 2 weeks between now and when we get on a real honest to goodness cross country course, and they will help when that time comes if you have them. So those are kind of my thoughts for the week, or for equipment for the week ahead. We're going to run a workout, and I'm going to shoot for either Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm going to kind of base it on weather. So I'll look for one of those 2 days. And then we'll do our race on Friday. The other runs will either be just kind of recovery runs or regular length runs. With pace groups, we're going to shuffle pace groups around a little bit this week, not dramatically, but just make sure we get some people training with others who are close, and I'm going to adjust some speeds for different groups as well. So we'll be seeing some changes, which is typical at the 4-week point in the season. And I think the big piece this week before I do the Mad Dog Award is just school starting up. And for each of you, that's gonna come with different uncertainties, anxieties, just an additional stress in life. And stress isn't, we've talked about that's not necessarily a bad thing. That just means you're taking on a new challenge. And this year is very much going to be that for us with school. For myself as well as a teacher. I mean, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm confident in what I'm going to be doing with my students that I have in my math classes. And I feel good about the things that I'm going to be doing to help them learn in this distance environment. But at the same time, it's different and it's harder. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, and it's important to give yourself some time to adjust to it, and know that we as coaches, both myself and Coach Lucio, get that you're going through a big adjustment this week. And maybe even into next week. The first 2 weeks, I think, are going to be us adjusting. And it's in part why I'm glad, we're not going to a meet for another 2 weeks, is we don't have that big thing on our competitive platter. And maybe you guys have a little extra space to mentally kind of handle the adjustment. And even if you're really looking forward to it, it's still a change in your life. Be taking care of those first day things. If you're uncertain, ask teachers. If you're uncertain about who to ask me. I work in the building. I talk to pretty much all your teachers on a semi-regular basis, or have ability to contact them. And I'm certainly willing to act as a go-between or help you in that conversation if I can. And that's a role I've played for a lot of students over the years and a lot of runners over the years. So with that, I want to turn to Mad Dog. And I got 2 pictures up. I couldn't figure out how to get Xander's to move orientation. That's just kind of probably an age thing. So Xander, I'm sorry, yours is sideways. Daniel, you still got to get me a picture. Camilla's was really creative, and I'll pop those up in a second. But this week's Mad Dog is going to go to Claire Fleming. Claire just had a tremendous week, really tough set of mile repeats where she pushed hard and was in control, but moving fast. And then she went out and proved it wasn't a fluke, proved it was the real deal, and just hammered out that mile. Went out a little bit quick on the first lap, but didn't really suffer dramatically from it, and hung on and ran a really, really nice mile within a few seconds of her PR, actually. And to not have been on the track for as long as we've not been on the track and be able to go and grind away in a mile at a fast speed like that just is a testament to her as a competitor. And I was just really impressed this week with the strength that Claire brought to both sets of speed training and really that diligence that has been there all season for her. That this week wasn't an anomaly, and it's just kind of a high point of the weeks for her. So Claire, congratulations! I'll have your Mad Dog certificate, and I do on Monday. And I just want to pop up those pictures because I have a minute or 2 left on the video. So the Mad Dog tab, we've got all our past photo albums of winners, and you can look through those. And then this week I put Claire's name up there. Daniel's still up there, and then Xander again. I'm sorry, your picture's sideways. It's a good one. He's got kind of his music theme going. And then Camilla went with an artistic route, which I think is awesome. I wouldn't have thought to do that with the Mad Dog Award, but that was really cool and creative, and I like that. So keep doing the things you're doing. Let us know if anything comes up this week, and we'll do our best to kind of help you through that process, and know that you're just doing tremendous work, and both Coach Lucio and I are really proud of you, and you should be really proud of yourself. So thanks for a great first half so far. Hopefully we get a little bit longer, but for sure first half of our season with the last 4 weeks. And I'm really looking forward to see what we can do together these next 4.